We've all been there. It's day one. You've made the choice. You've quit the job, ended the relationship, or finally said enough is enough to your old habits. There's a rush of adrenaline, and then you wake up the next morning. Suddenly, you're in the messy middle. You can see your day two, that ideal state of peace, health, and purpose, waiting for you on the horizon. But how do you actually get there without losing your way in the fog? I'm Patricia Rain, and this is The Space Between. This is the podcast for women who are done with wishing and ready for intentional planning. Today, we're talking about why the gap is your greatest asset and how we're going to bridge it to get to your day two. Let's dive in. Names, specific dates, and organizations mentioned in this story have been altered or anonymized to ensure the privacy and confidentiality of all parties involved. The views, information, or opinions expressed by guests during this podcast are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of Day 2 LLC, its facilitator, or its sponsors. This platform is intended for educational purposes and does not constitute professional, legal, financial, or psychological advice. Welcome to Episode 4. Today, we're going to discuss personal and professional prioritization while staying true to your core values and your vision. Get ready, because we are being joined by a powerhouse today. We have a Baltimore native, director for Travelers Insurance, Morgan State MBA, and proud member of Delta Sigma Theta. As a founder of Allure Boards, she creates pieces of art in charcuterie experiences. And as co-founder of MWC Enterprise, a new construction consulting business, she is all in every parts of her life. But her favorite titles, from director to entrepreneur, is mom to Zoe and Zuri. Welcome, Vermeka.
Thank you, Pat. Thank you for having me.
We are so excited to hear from you on just how you've managed to land in this space where you have so many different tentacles going on at one time. So if you could please share with us, what was the turning point for you? How did you decide to move forward on your own businesses, having a corporate career and a family?
Yeah, I can start with that. So I will say my turning point with deciding to expand from just my day-to-day operation was looking at my two daughters and thinking about retirement. Honestly, the day-to-day is awesome. And, I have a very flexible job I work with a great team. But when I really start to think about financial literacy and financial freedom, I started to think about some of my greatest strengths and how to leverage those. And when I think about strengths, I'm thinking about project management and also thinking about, decor and design, which I enjoy and love the most. And, when it came to putting together a charcuterie board, I did it one day for friends and they loved it. And what turned from a passion turned into a business, which generated extra income, which makes me think about that end goal, which is, I don't want to wait until I'm 65, 70 years old to think about retirement. I would like to do that a little bit sooner so I can kind of relax and help my daughters get to their next goals and things that are of value to them in their lives.
So can you tell me a little bit about how it was ingrained in you to be thinking and being so planful to think ahead for something like this? Your girls are still rather young. And if you don't mind sharing, how old are you?
I'm 40. Just turned 40 3 days ago, or 2 days ago, actually. So
happy belated birthday.
Thank you. Thank you. So this is a big turning point, I would say, just from an age point of view. But when you say, where did it start? Honestly, I think about my dad. I am one of 4 girls, and growing up, my dad worked for General Motors. He worked on the line, blue collar worker. And it took him 37 years with GM to retire. He retired early, which was kind of shocking. But the time of putting 37 years of commitment with one company, I was like, wow, that's a long time. And then I also think about my mother, who has been a blue collar worker, registered nurse, just recently retired. So when I think about the ability to put in hard work and think outside the box, and when you think about the economy and a lot of the things that are going on in the world, I think it's really important to not always put all your eggs in one basket and to have other options out there to generate income for your family, and not even just income, but like equity. Like when you think about MWC Enterprise, which is funny because I'm the co-founder of MWC, and MWC actually means married with children. That was our tagline for the business. When I think about this business and the ability to consult on new construction homes and like go through the process and project management, and then when you think about the end result, all the time it takes to design and give your thoughts and feedback and work with clients, I'm able to leverage all of the experience that I've gained over time in my roles in corporate America. But at the same token, I'm able to generate capital where my hope and plan and goal is that when it comes time for retirement, my children won't have to worry about a mortgage on the family home or even our rental property. So when I'm thinking about all of those things, I'm thinking about the time and effort my parents put in, my mom, all those years as an RN, and my dad, all the time he spent at General Motors. Like he gave them, so much energy and so much time. So when I'm balancing the two and thinking about what's important for retirement, I always go back to my parents.
I'd love to hear, how do you manage the corporate role, the two young girls, and the businesses without constantly competing for your attention?
So what I've learned over time is just each commitment in your life should have its own lane. Granted, there's some lanes that may intersect at given points, but if you like, when I think about, I'm going to call them my three hats. Hat is home Vermeka, where I'm mom to Zoe and Zuri, I'm wife to Terrell. That's one lane. My other lane, if I say Allure Boards, that's my other lane, and then MWC. And then actually four lanes because I have my full time at Travelers. When I'm at work, I'm at work. That's my full commitment. I give it my all. When I'm with the girls, completely present. Give that my absolute all. While I'm also carving out time in my schedule for MWC. Now, it could require a day where I need to meet an inspector. I might have to take off work that day to meet the inspector. But that's something that I plan out when I'm thinking about vacations and PTO. I will say that I have a great support system at home. My husband understands if I need to go meet an inspector, or if it is a project where I need to go meet the customer. Maybe they have questions about a design layout, or I need to pick out tile. He's very flexible when I say, hey, can you hold the girls? I need to run here real quick. I'll be back around this time. We use the Cozy app. I don't know if you've heard of that, but we use an app called Cozy, which is our best friend because it lets us know the days, the girls have track or whatever sport they're in, because they're really big on sports. Whatever sport they're in with whatever they have scheduled, we leverage that so I can respect his time while he's respecting my time. And I think the biggest thing is, I'm not going to just call it staying in my lane, but it's committing intentional time to what matters at that point. And also ensuring that I recognize that family always comes first. So if it is a matter, if one of the girls is sick, hey, like today, I'm sorry, Travelers, I might not be in today. My daughters are sick. The importance is the ability to do it with grace and without guilt. The one thing I will say with MWC is that since I'm doing a project and it's occurring over a period of time, I have more flexibility with a lot of those pieces and, getting the house to ready state than I might have with a commitment that I have with the customer with like Allure Boards. So I am very thoughtful about that, but I also know with Allure Boards, I rarely schedule big tables during the week because I know during the week it's homework time. As soon as 4:30, 5 o'clock hits, I understand that, I might have extra work or things that I need to complete where I might need to wake up early. So I do my best to commit to my Allure Boards activities like on the weekends. And honestly, I also bring the girls. I've been bringing them to some of my more recent ones, which I think is good. Like they should see mommy at work, and they should help mommy put the pineapples on the table. So, and I do it more with the oldest than the youngest because the young she's 4. She doesn't really understand everything. She's just like I want to eat a grape, you know. Whereas the oldest understands this is mommy's business, and we need to work. But what is fun, the youngest, she will help me cut cheese and create like some of the balls and some of the what is it, the salami rolls. She'll help me with those, which is always fun and prep.
So, Vermeka, it sounds like you have it pretty much running down to a science in understanding how important intentional planning is. Was there an event in your life or events in your life that kind of pointed you in that direction? So that was something that you worked on before you took on either business one or maybe between business one and business two. Was there a flashpoint?
Honestly, I think my flashpoint happened at work,
Okay.
like my regular day to day job. And my job I started at Liberty Mutual. I worked in claim, which can be very hectic. Worked as a claim professional managing bodily injury claims. And if I remember back, might have been like 2 or 3 years out of undergrad, I used to have to evaluate bodily injury claims, and we would receive time sensitive demands. And when we received the demand, I had 30 days to, well, most of them, 30 or 15 days to complete the evaluation of that particular demand. And just thinking back, it could have been expensive if I did not complete it by that period of time. So back then, I had already got into the groove of needing to schedule to ensure that I met a target goal. And then as I kind of got into my personal life, and even other places in my life, with the two businesses, I'm big on a to do list. And granted, I use the Cozy app, and I think about all the different things that are going on constantly. I do the same thing like with my finances. I budget. I think about those things, but I think the biggest thing that I've learned over time is you will have 150 things to do all the time. So it's like out of this 150 things that you have scheduled, what is your top priority today? And so what I would do is I would kind of plan out my day to say, all right, I have 100 things that I need to complete this month, but today I need to make sure I complete these 3 things, because if I don't, it's going to impact these other 3 things that I need to complete this week. And I would also give myself a little slack to know, if I think back to those time sensitive demands, you get those and you have them scheduled, but there will be 5 other things that are thrown in to disturb your day. So I've always taken the approach to allot a reserve for other things that might not be a part of my schedule. I think in Scrum they might call it like your big rocks, and you have like your little rocks. I've applied, well, Lean Six Sigma, not Scrum, but I've applied that to a lot of different facets of my life, and it has made things a lot easier. But I will also say the biggest thing too is just ensuring that, you know, stress happens. There will be times where you might not complete everything that you had scheduled on that particular day. But it's like, how do I respond and hold myself accountable, for the item that I might not have been able to complete that particular day. So I've been navigating that throughout life. And I also think as I've grown, I don't take things as seriously as I would say I used to. Not to say that things are not serious, but when you think about life and our time here, and you think about memories and your commitments, like the commitment that I have to work is far different than the commitment I have to my children. While I want to excel and I want to progress at work, I also want to be the best mom that I can be. So when I think about these two, competing priorities, my priority is always my family and ensuring that I'm showing up and that I'm the best person, because your job title can change. Where you work can change at any given point in time. But me being those two little girls' mom, that's forever. So
Absolutely.
just understanding those two things, I think that's critical.
Think back, if you can, and provide us an example of a day where you thought you had everything orchestrated from your traveler's job to your two businesses to your agenda with your kids for the week, knowing when it was horror. Think about a time where a curveball was thrown in. And if you could give an example to the audience on how you maneuvered through that time, how you prioritized during that time, and then how are you feeling in your body at that time?
Ooh, you're going to make me cry.
That's not the intention.
Oh, it's not the intention. But I will say around September last year, I lost my best friend. Uh, a best friend. He had been my friend since I was like 10, 11 years old. Okay. So we've been best friends for like 30 years. And he actually passed away on my youngest daughter's birthday. So to give full context, it was unexpected. So it wasn't something where we kind of planned that it was going to happen. So if you think about that day we had plans for Zuri to go get ice cream and to go do fun stuff to celebrate her big, she just turned 4. It's a big deal. Also, during that time, I had 2 large charcuterie boards that were planned in the next 2 upcoming weeks. I wouldn't say it seemed like it was like a girls' night or situation, if I remember correctly, but I just remember there were 2 distinct boards that needed to be completed within 2 weeks of him passing. Also had what we call at work planning around that time. Planning is a big deal. I'm sure a lot of folks in the tech world can relate. You have to plan out your work every 10 weeks, which means I'm preparing epics or what we call features, depending on what system you're in, if you're in Rally. And planning was critical during that time, which means I needed to meet with my business partners, have conversations, and prepare. And at the same time, it was actually past due at this point. My business partner was looking for a document from me so we could present to the client to list out all of the options for a house that we were building that, listed out what tile spec they preferred. And I was giving them my recommendations based on my design input. So I got the call from my oldest sister that Demel had passed away. So what did I do as far as priorities? I called my boss and said, I'm so sorry. I don't have the capacity right now to finalize and have these meetings with the business partners. I actually did have a conversation with one of the business partners, and they said, Vermeka, this is not important right now. Like, being with your best friend and the family is definitely high priority. So I was able to navigate that. My husband swooped in and said, go wherever you need to go, do whatever you need to do, which was beneficial. For when it came to the 2 boards, I still did those boards because I felt like that was an escape from thinking about planning his service, doing a balloon release, and doing all of these things. But I think the biggest thing that I've realized in that space was you can have all these things going on in the world all the time where you're always busy. But like, I can never get that time back that I had with him, and I miss him so much. Like, again, best friends since we were like 11 years old. He's lived across the street. Like, we used to sit on the porch and have all types of fun conversations and stuff. But just thinking back, when you prioritize, that's what I'm just saying. I feel like it's okay to say no sometimes. It's okay to not get things done. And I know I said it before. I'll say it again. Family always comes first. And I think, too, what I've learned in corporate America, when I first started working, I'm going to say, like, I was very cold. I was very about my work and about my business and executing everything. But as I've gotten older, and learn ways to be more personable with people, it has helped me progress in my career. And it's not a place where you need to, tell somebody every intimate thing about yourself. No, but it's it's a tactic that should be leveraged because it makes you a personal person, it makes you approachable, and it makes you relatable in situations where you might not know when somebody else that you're talking to have gone through the same situation, and now they want to work with you on projects because they feel like you're a human being instead of a robot that comes in and pumps out demand packages every day. Like that's who I used to be back in the day. So yes, I'm sorry. I know I was talking a lot.
No,
My allergies are killing me. My
thank you
bad.
so much for that transparency and being so candid. I think it was important for our audience to hear that you've built your resiliency on experiences of having to shift, of having to adapt. And it sounds to me like with every I won't say challenge, we'll say opportunity,
Yeah.
you have learned a little bit more about yourself, which helps you build towards the future. Probably no surprise to you, but there's a lot of women who do not put themselves first at all. And so, as we've described all your hats and all your lanes, the one thing I haven't heard yet that I'm pretty sure our audience will want to hear from you on is, what do you do for Vermeka? Where's the Vermeka lane?
Yeah, she's there every day. I think it starts with small things. One thing that I have committed myself for this year is I go to the gym and I have a trainer, and I go at least 3 days a week. And I go at 5 o'clock in the morning if I can. If not 5 o'clock, I'm there at 6:30 for the class. And this is something that's like personal for me, so I don't find myself, stressing out about things that are completely out of my control. Working out is important beyond just, day to day operations. Is also just critical for my health as I'm getting older and need to keep that little pouch down that likes to surface when you hit that good 38, 39, 40 mark. So working out has been my go-to, and planning time away with my girlfriends is typically the escape. And one other thing that's interesting, that's not really an escape, but it's still something that brings me joy. I will plan lunch dates, and I will take one of my girls with me on a lunch date with a friend. So that way they feel like they're part of the crew and like with the adults, but also, in a childlike environment. But it just gives me context to think about like little small childhood memories that I had with my mom that made me feel important and like a big deal. And also was dedicated time for me and my mom. So it's not always the need to get away. I think it's important to dedicate time to get away, to reset your batteries and to recharge. So it's important to get the time away, but it's also important for you to think about how can you daily dedicate a moment to yourself. And it could be an hour, it could be 30 minutes that you wake up before the girls are, crawling in the hallway saying, Mommy, help me come brush my teeth. Like, I think about all of those different things.
So, as part of um, that mental health piece and that passion is really what started you off with Allure, with the charcuterie boards, right? It was something that gave you joy. I heard you use that phrase, and it sounded like it was something that you could do for yourself, but also make others happy. Is that framed correctly?
I like to make food pretty. And I don't think that, I looked at my competitors, and I think everyone has their own style with how they set up their boards. But the way I approach my design techniques, I literally create like a palette, like a sheet of paper, and I draw out what I want my design to be. I've seen some folks in different, I keep calling them my competition. In the back of your head, you have to just view yourself as your own competition. Um, but what I've noticed is they may just kind of lay the bread in one section, the tomatoes in another section, And they have different selections that are on the board that are like clumped in certain ways, but it's not a design. I literally think through, okay, this is an Omega Sci-Fi event. How do I put the Omega hook in there to in roses to kind of allude to the name of their organization? I did a board for a nonprofit called Parity Homes, and I took cheese and I cut out letters to represent their name, and it was like their grand opening, and I use it on like little zippers of salami meat. So like literally, when I think about when someone asks me to do a board, I'm asking them follow up questions. I'm like, okay, well, what's the event for? What's your favorite color? Real small details, so I can make sure that I'm capturing the floral arrangements and the design in the board. Why? Because I like to make food pretty, and at the same token, even when you think about MWC, I'm thinking about the house and like, how do I make this a warm place for somebody to come in and want to purchase? I will say at the start of it, it's important to understand your own abilities. I would say initially, I didn't realize what I was doing was like really nice. And my friends was like, it's just gorgeous. And I'm like, okay, like it's fine. I'll just do this for fun. And then when people started to say, no, like seriously, can I compensate you for this board? I was like, wow, like you guys really like this? And then, I went through the paperwork process to create the LLC, to get my certifications, and even to get my like insurance, because I learned that there were some bookings I could not get unless I had the liability insurance. So going through all of that process made me understand the value of what I bring to the table. And it also helped me with understanding my pricing associated with those boards when I create them. But I will say this, I started with like smaller boards. And then one day I did like a huge grazing table randomly for somebody. And my lane has been, folks love my grazing boards. And that is my most sold board. Even though originally I was like, I just want to do the grazing, the small bowls. They were like, no, Vermeka, we want a grazing board. Takes a lot more time, but it has become my go-to.
So what I'm hearing is, if I think about our entire discussion, is that you took your inherent talents for project management as the foundation, and you coupled it with really a few now businesses that give you joy and tap into maybe those talents that you have that you would love to spend more time in by using the skills that you use at work.
I'll also say this because it can be difficult for a person to hop into something that they just you're not familiar with, right? You don't know the process. Like building and consulting for building a home. I didn't understand the process. My business partner, very thoughtful, understood the process, but I had no knowledge of those things. But when I think about my upbringing and I think about the things that my dad and my mom instilled in me, more my dad, as I was growing up, it's okay to try something. What's the worst that could happen? Like, okay, you failed. All right, you didn't accomplish the goal in the time frame that you said that you were going to accomplish the goal. Let's try again. So when I think about even the concept of riding a bike, the first time, and this is a quick story, but I promise I'll be quick. The first time I learned to ride a bike, I remember I was at a school that was near my grandmother's house, and my dad had me in a parking lot, and I was riding the bike with trainer wheels. And a friend that grew up with us, his name was David. He came in, and David was 2 years younger than me. I was like 6. David came in, he was like 4, and he's on a mountain bike. And he came up next to me and said, "Oh, you still riding with trainer wheels?" And I looked at him, I said, "Daddy, take the trainer wheels off." And my dad looked at me and he was like, no, we can't take, I was like, well, you're going to take the trainer wheels off today. And he took the trainer wheels off, and I learned how to ride my bike at the end of that day. Because I'm like, David, who's 2 years younger than me, is not going to come in here and tell me I can't ride my bike. Like, I'm going to figure it out. And that same philosophy, I had applied, like, of course, family and everyone, they laugh at that story. But like, when you really think about the drive and the motivation behind it, it means something. Even when I think about wanting to become a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, that took a lot of effort. It took a lot of energy. It took networking. It pulled me out of my comfort zone. But I knew that was something that I wanted. And it took a lot of drive and, a lot of grunt to get there. But I was able to accomplish that goal. So I think the key is when you put something in your mind and you create a to-do list, do some research. It could require, Google. We have AI today. Leverage AI. It is a tool that should be leveraged. I'm just big on, once you want to do something, what's the process to execute it? I think some people get caught up in, most of the time, you get caught up in your own mind with your ability to execute something. But if you just try it, okay, the worst that can happen is someone tells me no. Like I can think about so many different times in my life when I took steps or, tried things where people were looking at me like, I cannot believe you went and scheduled a meeting with that senior leader. And I was like, well, they're a person just like I am. And they're like, but you're 22 and they've been here for 50 years, whatever the case is. And I'm just like, who cares? Like,
Absolutely.
just try it. It doesn't hurt.
So we know that sometimes people need a mentor or someone to help them understand how to try it, right? Everyone has different strengths and different skill sets. And I would say that people can also use an accountability partner from time to help move them along. Do you have a time where you either had a mentor or an accountability partner that helped you stay on track with your goals?
Yeah, if I think back to my early years in corporate America, I remember fresh out of college, working at Liberty Mutual, like in the entry level positions. A manager at the time, who was also a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. I would say she took me under her wing and helped me understand and navigate corporate America. And she also pushed me to do things that I didn't think I was going to do. One example, I went to Morgan State to get my MBA. When I graduated A&T, I told myself, I have my degree. I don't need to go to school for anything else. And she politely pulled me to the side and said, "Oh, you are going to get this MBA because what's stopping you from doing it? Like, you don't have any children, you don't have anything to hold you back right now. You're going to go and get this degree, and the company you work for, they're going to pay for it." And that's exactly what happened. And when I think about, some of the challenges that I experienced early on in my career, some of the things I probably maybe said or, did that maybe wasn't the best path. Maybe I was a little too aggressive. I will say that in my earlier years, I was extremely direct with my communication. But she really helped guide me and put things in my ear that I wouldn't have known. And I will say I took her mentorship and the things that she instilled in me, and I instilled that in other women that I've worked with. And even programs like Inroads is a program that I was a part of.
Great
Awesome
program.
They are the reason why I got my full-time job. And they taught me a lot of like professional development, a lot of things early on when I was a college student. But I learned a lot when I was in Inroads. When I graduated and expanded in corporate America, I took the time to give back to those students at Inroads. I took the time to give back to the students, the girls at my all girls high school in Baltimore, and meet with them and just explain some of the challenges that a woman can experience in corporate America, and even more or less a Black woman in corporate America. So just having and creating like a safe space, I think, is important. Even if it's something as small as you correcting somebody's resume, like, you never know how small of could take you 15 minutes of your time, but that could change the trajectory of that student's or even that employee's life. Now, so like, yes, I have been mentored early ages, and I also find different ways to, tailor it and give that back in my time as well.
Full transparency, audience. Vermeka and I worked together for years at Travelers before I went on to my next role in insurance and before day two. And so I have seen her in action, and her ability to identify and isolate the issue and handle it with the utmost professionalism and looking for a solution is top notch.
And full transparency, Pat was my mentor when I came to Travelers, and she hired me at Travelers. So
That is true.
yes, and helped me at Travelers. Also expanded my knowledge beyond claim and exposed me to folks in other areas, which is why I am now in a tech role outside of claim. Claim is my foundation, it's my background. I spent 10 years, actually 15, yeah, 15 years in claim, which is it's a different beast. Learned a lot, but just understanding that foundation and being able to branch out and expand it to other areas, I think is always the coolest thing. So I appreciate you for exposing to me to some of those people.
Well, it's what we've talked about informally all along. It's women helping women. When you see a talent out there, there's enough to go around for everyone to have the ability to be visible and seen, and really taking an interest in what that woman's passions are and what their talents are and what their goals are. And it is wonderful to hear how you pay that back to each of the communities that have been there for you.
It's beyond college experiences and meeting women and being able to share your experience. You'd be surprised how your presence in certain spaces impacts individuals. And when I say that, I mean even children. So, like Pat, I know you remember we used to spend a lot of time at Junior Achievement and in BizTown. And when I think about my childhood, like I grew up in Baltimore City, East Baltimore City. Went to a very, I guess, quote unquote, not so quality of a school for elementary school. It had the ability to attend a bridge camp that was a part of the school that I ended up going to for high school and for middle school. But just being that kid at Coldstream Park Elementary School and having, granted, society would think that the school was terrible, but I had some awesome teachers that I looked up to, that I still value and communicate with today. My kindergarten teacher, she is the first lady of my best friend's church. My first, second, and third grade teacher, because we had her for all three grades, she was my driving force behind, my placement on the testing and all of those things. So when I think about Junior Achievement, when I look at those children, I see me. So I'm like, how can I relate to them so that they understand that there's a path forward outside of what you might see every single day. So I think all of those things are really important to like the success of those individuals on a go forward basis.
Yeah. So as we wrap this up, if you could take a look at the version of yourself before you embarked on your family life and your corporate life, and then your two growing businesses that you're a part of, what would you tell that Vermeka back then?
Oh, I would tell her, be patient. I would tell her, give yourself grace. Everything doesn't need to happen tomorrow, and to continue to press forward. Because I think I can think of myself as a young person. I wanted everything yesterday. And I did not accept the word no pleasantly. Like I would continue to press. But every no is it's not a bad idea. Like some no's, that closed door was meant to open another door that you didn't see yet. So just being able to trust your path might not be the path that you end up in. That's okay. So I would say be patient, and patience is probably, I was very impatient. But just looking back on where I was versus where I am now, I wouldn't change a thing. So I would say patience And yeah, patience. That's probably it.
Yeah. Well, Vermeka, I can't thank you enough for joining us today. We're walking away with some golden tidbits here that I know you spoke to many in our audience and spoke to many in our audience in a way that perhaps, have them thinking a little differently about what's next for them
I hope so.
and inspiring them to not take no for an answer. And then sometimes the no is okay, as you said.
Yeah.
But organization, prioritization, and intentionality to me were the themes of our discussion.
No, I agree. Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it.
Subscribe or click the follow button to The Space Between on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your stories. Join our founding community. And remember, the site is cleared. You have the steel. It's time to build. I'm Pat. Welcome to day 2.